You're listening to Living Free, your podcast for a life full of freedom and magic. I'm your host, Tanja Hirsch, and I hope that every time you listen, you feel a little bit more inspired to follow your intuition and to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. So, welcome to the podcast, Sophia. I'm so excited and grateful to dive so naked with you today.
So happy to be here, honey.
So, the first question I would like to ask you is, what does living free mean to you right now in this moment?
To me, living free is really free from our closures. So a lot of the work that I do is I work with polarity, and to me, polarity is a technology of learning how to open when it's more comfortable to close. And a closure could be resentment, or where are all the conscious men, or all men suck, or whatever it is, right? Or oh, they've always left me, or I'm not going to find anybody anyways, or he's not present with me. Like all of these things are creative closures. And to me, living free is truly being free from all of these things that we've told ourselves are maybe powerful or empowered, but actually they are stopping us from flowing with life, dancing with life. So freedom for me is this openness to life.
Mm,
Yeah.
I loved it. And I'm curious because I know behind every empowered woman like you are, there's a powerful story. How did
Mm-hmm.
you end up teaching this medicine and embodying this work that is really, it has the power to change your life and to change your story? What was your story before, and how did you change it into something you would like to see in the world and the relationships you like to create?
So I was actually a data scientist before this, so it was very different. I was a programmer. I worked at a big corporation. I was a manager. Um, and it wasn't that I per se hated that work at all or that it was a toxic workplace, but I very much was the strong, independent woman. And I
Mm,
had my shit together and I was making my money and I was, taking care of myself and all that. And I thought I was what feminine should be. I was what the feminists told me to be.
mm,
And I burnt out on that so incredibly badly that I ended up in bed for 2 years. My body was so exhausted and I was so confused why I couldn't handle this life that I had spent my entire life having an ambition for. And in that burnout, I rediscovered my roots. My mother was actually a tantrika. And I kind of went back to my roots and learned about these masculine and feminine energies. And when I started studying that, I realized that feminine was something completely different than a woman on high heels and a pretty dress being really charming and really powerful. And feminine was about something completely different.
mm,
Feminine was about when somebody gives you a compliment, do you actually receive it?
mhm.
If you go to the IKEA, will you ask somebody to come along with you and will you let that in? Feminine was about it was about actually receiving the world. And I hadn't done that my entire life because I was telling the whole world that I didn't need it. I was very good at telling everybody, no, no, don't worry. I got myself, I got myself. And so learning that technology of what feminine and masculine actually is, and it's the same for the masculine. We have a very wounded masculine imprint from the world around us, and when masculine energy is actually so beautiful, it's so beautiful. And I realized how many covert, what's the word, judgments I had towards the masculine,
Mhm.
and actually looked down on him. And I kind of dabbled in the goddess world, and it didn't feel good to me at all. I thought, what man would want to step up to a woman that says, I need you to treat me like a queen? And like that didn't feel good either. And so I really started feeling that there's so much work we get to do between masculine and feminine,
Mhm.
where we get to honor and respect both sides. And
Yes.
this didn't this of course very much expressed itself in my relationships, where I used to date men that were kind of would turn into puppies in my lap right away. um, to now a man that's actually leading me and is
Mm.
yeah, and I'm actively surrendering to. And but it also translated in my work, in my business, in my relationship to money, in my relationship to God, in all these places where we have an active relationship to a masculine container. And all of that is truly about, can you trust him even when he can't guarantee that he will always be there?
Mm.
And that's for everything. That's for your man, that's for your lover, that's for your money, that's for your business, that's for your clients. And
Mm.
so that's been my life the last few years, and it's been magical. I feel like I've tapped into the science of life. That's what it feels
I
like.
I loved it so much. And what was the when you studied these principles, the magic and the power of feminine and masculine
Yeah.
polarity and energies, what was the root healing work you needed to do to be able to recreate, to be able to open, to surrender to? Because I can imagine there's a lot of women listening thinking, oh wow, that's me, like I'm having my shit together, I'm successful in my business, but somehow I cannot surrender to a man, I cannot trust a man and fully open. What was the shift that happened in your life that you were able to really breathe
Yeah.
for the first time in a while?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. So I think that shift was opening because of the pain. So I had
Mm.
men leave me, and really I had abusive relationships, and I was really abandoned at terrible moments in my life. Like, one of my partners broke up the day after my mother's funeral. Like, I
Mm.
had some like rough times with men. I had a lot to be angry about. And after my last abusive relationship, I realized that I couldn't punish every future man for what his brother did. And what happened instead is that I opened because of the pain. So how I approached my dates was really like, I was burned really bad, and it's hard for me to trust you, and I'm here anyways, and this is what that looks like.
Mm.
This is what it looks like when I'm nervous. This is what it looks like when I'm insecure. This is what it looks like when it's hard for me to trust you. And so I brought it as an opening, and that might sound really abstract, or you can kind of feel what I'm talking about there, but it, again, what I spoke about in the beginning, it's about opening through it with what's real in the moment. and
Mm.
and the relationship after, I was a man that, who I'm with now, is a man who can feel me with what's
Mm.
all there. And so all that pain is still there, but he's now loving me through it.
Yeah. And you're loving
Yeah.
yourself in it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honoring it. That's part of my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And
Mm.
I would love to dive a little bit into the dynamics. And I'm sure you've
Mm-hmm.
teach this 100,000 times, but for people who are just diving into the polarity work and that listen to your story and think like, wow, this is something I want to learn too. What
Mm.
is feminine and masculine energetics in its core in a healthy way?
Yeah, great question, because there's so many people talking about this right now, and everybody has a bit of a different perspective. And what I always say with polarity is, feel what's real in your body, right? So if I, what I'm about to say is my perspective on how I experience these things, but this isn't like, just like yoga translates different in everybody. It's the same with polarity work. So to me, the feminine is literally in sex, how I take in the world, how I receive the world. So it's, do I let it in? Do I let a sunset move me? Do I
Mm.
allow a compliment in? Do I let something hold me? Right? It's really about actually experiencing. So I don't always want to use the word surrender, but it's about experiencing the present moment and being an expression of that. So feminine for me is, I always say yes, no, no, yes, no. It changes every minute. And to be an
Right.
actual expression of that, to have an integrity of your heart, rather than I'm fining or suppressing stuff, or like really being an expression of what is true for you right now,
Mm.
in a way that isn't vomiting and that isn't checking out. So that's very shortly what I think is feminine. Masculine, then, if we look at sex, is how we penetrate the world, how we go into the world, what we literally stand for, what are we erect about, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's something I stand for? What is something that I know to be true? And the masculine has, I love distinguishing in the masculine kind of this light and darkness. The light is this beautiful, like, I've got you, I see you. And the dark masculine is this beautiful, like, penetration and boundaries, and something's in my way and I'm going to move it now. And so the
Mm-hmm.
masculine, in relationship to the feminine, it's not that the masculine's always leading the feminine. The masculine is more structuring the world for the feminine. So an example I always love to give is that it's not necessarily the case that my partner tells me, I'm going to take you out for dinner tonight to that restaurant. It is that he says, I'd love you to take you out for dinner. Do you want pasta or do you want Thai?
Mm-hmm.
Because if he would have said, I want to take you out for dinner, what do you feel like? The feminine usually goes, I don't know, right? I have no idea. It's too much. I can't take in the world like that. What does the masculine do is he structures it for her. He gives her two options. He gives her two things, and then she can feel where her fuck yes is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say the masculine is more listening than leading. And so what that means is means that the feminine is actually leading. And she needs to speak and express loud enough so he has something to base his guidance on. If he asks me, do you want Thai or pasta? And I go, that might be a sign for him that those two options weren't great. If I just say, oh, whatever you want, I'm actually not giving him anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
yeah.
so
I
this is
love.
how I see the masculine and feminine, which might be very different if you experience it differently in your body.
Yeah. And what, um, in your journey, what has been the most dominant energy? Do you feel like you've spent when we're talking about the healthy dynamics, have you
Yeah.
spent more of your life in the masculine or in the feminine?
So as a strong, independent woman, that was just a masculine energy. There was very little actual feminine. It looked very feminine, but it wasn't. It wasn't feminine. Now I see myself as somebody who has a very well developed on both sides. I
Mm.
love being in my masculine energy. Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
God, do I enjoy that? I love leading a workshop. I love bringing structure to things. I love doing that, but it's not necessarily what nourishes me. So it's
Hmm.
not where I recharge. So I do love that part of myself. But if I do that the whole day, I'm going to burn out. I'll dry
Yeah.
up, literally dry up. Masculine
Yes.
without feminine, dry, gets dry. There's no juicy. In my relationship, in my friendships, even, I am mostly very feminine. I call myself a cat around my girlfriends. I kind of just hang around and follow you wherever you're going, and sometimes say that I'm hungry or that I want to cuddle, right? That's kind of my energy around my friends and in my relationship, because that really nourishes me. I
Hmm.
love that. I love that. I love that. So that doesn't mean that that's the only thing I'll do. That doesn't mean that my partner always has to lead me or always has to be in that energy. Absolutely not. But it is where I receive most of my nourishment and what I need to come back to the world to penetrate it again.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. And it's so important to have a healthy balance because what I observe in all this goddess movement that's out there right now, that they even call the masculine sometimes bad, or you just need to be in your feminine. But without the masculine, the feminine is gonna end up floating around and getting nothing done. And the last 15 years of my healing journey has all been about my big trauma wounds of feeling abandoned, about healing the relationship to my mother and the wounds that were connected to that deeply in my root. And it only appeared like 1 year ago that I could access the masculine because I always thought my dad is this great man and I don't have anything against him. Like he worked so hard, he did everything he could until I allowed myself to feel like, wow, there has been things that weren't received. He couldn't give me what I needed back then. And now I'm very passionate about establishing a healthy masculine inside of us, that we don't look for this outside in men, in relationships, in humans, even in situations. I was
Yeah.
craving for safety and to be seen and to be chosen because that's what I didn't receive as a child. And yeah, I think this work can really change your whole life if you're willing to open to receive it. And you shared something the other day that really resonated with me and that I feel is not talked about enough in this world is the winter. We as feminine
Yeah.
beings, and I think every human being goes through cycles, and there's phases where we're overflowing with energy and we want to get it out, and we can almost not hold the words in, and it's just flowing. And then there's cycles where we need all of our holding space, all of our nourishment for ourselves. And I had this phase beginning of the year for a few months where I had to shut down everything. My business couldn't continue the way it was because I needed that for myself, but I didn't see anyone talking about this. That's why I love your post so much, that you talked so openly about the beauty of the winter, that we need these phases to come back to ourselves and to be with ourselves, to be able to flow again. Can you share a little bit about your recent experience of the winter time you
Yeah.
had?
So many of us are will eventually be domed into respecting the winter. So our bodies will be so exhausted and or you're burnout or whatever. Um, when actually what I wish for a lot of people is that we start honoring the winter and actually really celebrating it and seeing its value, right? A seed is planted in the dark, a baby is grown for 9 months, right? There is a gestation period and a marination period. I call that, that is fertile. And so
Mm,
my energy isn't outward all the time. It doesn't want to be. And I am at the mercy of that. And I actually think we all are. And some of us have been really good at not listening to that. But when you are actually listening to that, you'll notice that there are times, just like seasons, where your energy is flowing out and
mhm,
where your energy is going inwards. And if we actually start respecting that energy going inwards, like I've been in a, I think what ended up being actually a 9 month long winter, and I'm chronically ill, and that means that I don't have the luxury to push through it. So when my energy doesn't want to go out, I have no choice but to respect it. And what has happened, and every time I've had winters, and I've had many periods of those, that's where my most, like, all the juiciness and my creativity comes. My courses are birthed there. My richness of life happens there. And
mm,
so it literally feels fertile. It feels fertile, and I wish this on so much on everybody, that we could accept that. For instance, if you're running an online business, it doesn't have to be all year round. You know, what if it was 6 months? What if it was 9 months? What if you actually truly gave yourself time off?
mhm,
Truly let it go, to just be in that nourishment again, to just be in that gestation, and not a gestation so that you can create, no, just gestation to be. and
mm,
and and so a lot of us are having this awareness, of course, that we have seasons and we have cycles, but I don't see often that people are truly celebrating it and truly respecting it. And often I see people enduring it because they're domed into it. And I've learned myself the hard way that there's value in this, and that I get to embrace it and celebrate it, and it is actually where my juice is created. Yeah.
mm. That resonates so much. And when we look into nature, it's everywhere, right? Like the seed that you
Everywhere.
plant and the baby that is born in the womb. And we unlearned to honor that. We are so conditioned that we have to push through and we have to work a 9 to 5 all day long, and we, yeah, just live in out of alignment with our true nature. And that's why we feel guilty if we canceled a week of work and we say no to people. And I was so afraid. I was a school teacher in my, I call it my previous life.
Yeah.
And when I had also a burnout, and when I was in this deep phase of just needing to rest and not being able to do anything because I was so noise sensitive, I shared this so openly with my principal in school. And she reacted very harsh and said I should just quit if I cannot do this job properly. And I almost get traumatized by this, by feeling not safe to share what's really going on. But I was just in the wrong environment for this. And now when I shared, I'm not, I'm just taking space for me now, and I'm taking care of myself. In the beginning, I was very afraid to share this, to disappoint people or to make people, I don't know, I was just afraid of the reaction. And the way it was received was so healing for me to see like,
Yeah.
wow, you're inspiring me that it's okay to do that too. Like I didn't receive a single message that said you're selfish, you're like you're supposed to help people. Like nothing of my fears came true, and I could really let go of this holding on. I have to have it all together all the time. It's okay to be a mess. It's okay to be in the darkness and not to show up, to be in your bed for a whole week. That's so completely fine if it feels good for your body, but we have to recondition our brain and our bodies and to allow ourselves to see it as nourishment and not to blame ourselves. What's wrong with us and why do we feel this way? No one else is doing this, so why do you need this much time and space? And to show the world it's normal, it's part of nature, and it's okay. And especially if we've been running on survival mode for years, like probably we both did, it's normal to have even years where you don't have a lot of energy, where your
Oh,
body
yes.
just needs to rest. And I felt really, in the beginning, I felt like something is wrong with me, that I wanted to stay home so much and in nature and I didn't want to see people. But it's your body knows what you need, and it will fill yourself up with energy and healing and all you need if you honor that and not try to continue the life you were supposed to, or that you used to live, because it's out of alignment with nature, with our true nature. So thank you so much for sharing this. And you have one exciting course coming up, and I feel this one is gonna be very, very potent and also part of your journey. Can you share a little bit about the course Healing the Masculine?
So I have a bestseller course called Healing the Masculine, where I really work on our inner relationship to the masculine within ourselves and outside. So I work with the concept of the inner dude, which is really like, do you have an inner masculine? Often, what I see in women is that, for instance, they'll share their emotions with their man, and if their man can't hold it, they drown. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a sign that you don't have this developed inner masculine. When you don't have a developed inner masculine, the outer masculine is actually not free to show up for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when he isn't free to show up for you, he will resist it. And so when I share my emotions with my man and I can say, hey, do you have space for this? And he's like, actually, not really. I'm like, okay, I got me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different dynamic than, I need you to process my shit right now with me. So that's very much what this course is about. I work with the masculine in culture, in partner, in, that's funny, I forgot the other one. Culture, partner, father, and an inner polarity, outer polarity. And it's a really, really deep course. It's my favorite course. Hundreds of people have gone through it. It's truly life changing. But it's funny because that's actually not the course that's coming.
Oh, really?
It is. It's
Which,
an ongoing course now, but the course that's coming is a course called Sky Daddy.
oh, I did my research.
Don't worry, don't worry. No, I love it because healing the masculine is always there. No, the main upcoming life course is Sky Daddy, where I believe that the cosmos, that the universe, is a kinky man that loves making you beg for things and that loves making
Mm,
you wait and is doing everything so that you open wider. And when you can
mm,
see it in this kinky way, everything that happens to you is now all of a sudden a foreplay. And so if you want to make the money and the money isn't coming yet, that's him just not entering you just yet, even though you're begging for it. And it's in service of it. It's in service of you wanting it even harder. And so
mm,
I love the concept of Sky Daddy because it brings your entire life into this, yeah, this sensual, kinky play. And so that's
mm.
how I commune with God. I just go, oh, Sky Daddy, what are you doing now? Oh my God, what are you doing right now?
I
Okay, you
love
want me to
that.
beg harder? Okay, I'll beg harder.
Can you share an example of how this can look like in your everyday life? How it could shift your perspective on how you see things?
Okay, let's say you want to call in your conscious man, right? Or the king, or whatever you want to call it. And you're on a date and he's so not that. And it might be really easy to then again close into the, oh, look, I can't find a good man. Oh, there's no good man out there. You know, they all suck. Nobody can meet me. I'm too much for everybody. Blah, 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 blah. Right? It's so easy to go in that, to go into the disappointment and that you failed again. The Sky Daddy perspective is to see that date in front of you and just think, okay, now I'm just going to want it even harder. you you're not spanking me the way I want you to, so I'm gonna want it even harder. I'm gonna beg you for, no, not like that, I want it like that. And it's so it's fuel on the fire rather than, okay, now I give up.
Mm,
The
mm,
female or the feminine desire is the reason the world goes around,
mm,
right? And so many of us have normalized starvation. And I am here also to reclaim hunger and to reclaim longing, to be
mm.
hungry for more. Because here's the thing, you're never going to be satiated. The practice of the feminine is just to want more and more and more and more, and to want more of the thing that already tastes so good. So it's not because right now isn't enough. It's because right now it tastes really good and I want more of that.
Mm.
And that
Yes.
makes the world go round. That's what the masculine gets attracted to. It's like, that woman wants devoted love. Oh, I could feel that. And he moves there. So I think a lot of the feminine has normalized not being hungry.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
accepting the bare minimum and think that's all I deserve, it's enough. And there's a whole another deeper layer to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm, I love that. And I was in Tahiti with two of my sisters when I don't know if it was Sky Daddy. Did you launch this course before?
No, not yet. No, it's going to be new.
No, it was something related to money, but you
Deep
also
money.
talked about the Sky Daddy,
Yeah.
and we were laying in bed on a Saturday evening naked with popcorn, and we listened to I think it was a three-part masterclass or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's how I would love to see women spending their Saturday nights. It was such a beautiful experience. And I remember you said this, what you just shared with the Sky Daddy, and I translated it to my business, because sometimes we do all the things and we don't see the results yet. And rather than giving up and saying, okay, maybe this is not for me, this is not my path, seeing it as a foreplay, like wanting it even more and to invite it in and to already embody the version that believes in that. And that's, if you just start and you have all these existential fears of how to survive, that's really, for me, that changed the game, to really lean into the not knowing and not having and trusting that it's all coming, because you can feel it in your body. You can see the vision of yourself. You There's yes, so much magic in these words if you really embody it and not only think, okay, I trust, but to really open and to invite more in without closing because it's not there yet.
Yes. Yes. And
Mm.
you know, we all talk a lot about being unsafe versus safe, when actually it's a scale, and there's a beautiful gray area where there is uncertainty, but you can be with it. There is,
Mm.
I don't know if he's going to push me up against the wall or he's going to tie me up. I have no idea, and I can feel it in the air. That's
Mm.
uncertainty that we get to squirm for. And so, especially when we're starting our businesses, it is a crash course in stretching your nervous system into being with uncertainty, being with no guarantee, and holding the pose. And that doesn't mean that you are not allowed to, like, every time I launch, I'm an emotional mess. But I will say that right away. I don't think that's ever going to change. I have now support systems that hold my emotional messes when I go through it. But what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. The feminine. So where was that going?
I lost it too.
Okay, that dot. That dot. Yeah.
Mm. It's like, oh, a butterfly.
Yeah. Distracted by bright lights all the time.
And I would love to dive into something personal if you're open
Mhm.
for it, because I
Of
know
course.
you're about to go into something health related, and you
Yeah.
you found a surgeon that takes care of that, and I know so many women who struggle with the same and that are not taking seriously, or that just, yeah, they try to check a box. Can you share a little bit about your story with endometriosis and how
Yeah.
it's makes you feel right now?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that here. I heard yesterday that next week I'm going to get a surgery that I've been waiting for over a decade.
Mm.
And about 10 or 12 years ago, I started getting really, really painful periods and ovulations, and they were so painful that I would pass out. And I right away, and so this happened every 10 days. Like this has been happening every 10 days for 10 years. I right away felt that something was wrong. And so I went to, over the course of 10 years, I must have gone to maybe 15, 20 hospitals. I think I was in the ER over 100 times. I had so many MRIs and scans and mini surgeries, and nobody could ever find anything. And endometriosis is notoriously hard to diagnose. You need somebody who has lots of experience to find it. I had a lot of gynecologists that said, oh, I can't see it, so it's not there. But they were
Mm.
actually not experienced. What happened for me is that the past 10 years, I have had to fight the medical establishment to be taken serious. I have been told that my pain wasn't so bad, that nothing was wrong because they couldn't find anything, right? Nothing was wrong. You think something's wrong, nothing's wrong. That I was just a hypochondriac, or that it was psychosomatic, or that I should just read Joe Dispenza and blah, 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 blah. I've heard many versions of your pain is not real.
Mhm.
And and I would go to every doctor. I said, I know what you're going to tell me, but I know something's wrong. I know something's wrong. And it was so hard to feel such a clear signal in my body and to have every scan turn up clean. And I would start doubting
Mm.
myself, like, am I crazy? Am I actually crazy? And so the disease, of course, progressed over the past 10 years, and I got sicker and sicker and sicker, and so much pain in my body. I can't describe how much pain there is, and just chronic exhaustion and all these things. And up to the point where I have very little quality of life left, right? I only have 2, 3 good hours a day. And up until last December, I had no answer because nobody had found anything, right? And I just didn't know what was going on. I was ready to fly to California to find, because I knew there was a really famous endometriosis surgeon there. And then I realized there was one hospital I hadn't gone to in Holland. And I went there, and he was amazing. And within 30 seconds, he found 8 spots,
Wow.
big spots, like really large spots, where it had infiltrated my organs. And it were all the places where I had said for 10 years that I could feel
Mm.
it was there. I was like, I know it's in that corner. I know it's there. I know it's there. And he's like, yep, 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 yep. And he said it was so considerable, or it was so, like the state of the disease was so severe. He said, I can't imagine that you can do anything anymore. I was like, yeah. So that happened in December, and it was deeply, it was relief, it was anger, it was, I had like this, because honestly, this past decade, I was just trying every version I could of communication to be taken serious. So I tried the really emotional woman. I tried the woman with the very low voice. I tried to bring men to my appointments. I tried to be really scientific about it. I tried all these versions, and I just would not be taken serious. And this is the thing, we don't take feminine pain serious.
Mm.
We don't take her serious. And when she says, I know something's wrong, we assume that maybe it's not that bad. And so I'm now, and this is my golden tip if you are in this, do not waste a minute of your time when you sit down and you feel that their
Mm.
foundation is, I'm sure it's fine. If that's the foundation and how they're speaking to you, don't waste a minute of your time. Don't go down the process of doing the checks with them, because it takes, endometriosis takes somebody who is willing to look at you and listen to you and take you serious and look and investigate further. Because if they can't find it, it doesn't mean it isn't there. And so I I'm very passionate about the topic now because I'm a very well resourced woman. I have a really strong academic background. I knew every academic article in the world, and it took me 10 to 12 years to get a diagnosis in a first world country. That shouldn't be happening. And this is normal. It's normal on average. It takes 8 years to get a diagnosis. That should not be happening. That's a symptom of something really disturbing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I goosebumps all over my body because it is true. It is so true. My grandma had lung problems for many, many years, and she went to so many specialists and doctors, and she said, I have problems with my lungs, and they couldn't find anything. And then one day she just collapsed, and when she went to the hospital, they saw that she has lung cancer in like the end stadium, and no specialist about lungs could ever find this out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes me kind of kind of sad, but I also believe, of course, there's a lot of medicine and we need also the medicine to help us, but there's this how the system of medicine works and how they were educated, they don't get the holistic perspective. They just need to see the facts and it has to make sense from the mind until they have to check the boxes. And if it's not,
Yep.
then
Yep.
they don't
Yeah.
believe you, they don't take you serious. I had the same with
What I
sorry, yeah.
what I will say about this, and I posted about that today, is that here's where we also get to practice openness. I've experienced the shittiest things in medical world. Like I've just heard the worst of the worst. I am still, every time I sit down in front of a doctor, I bring openness and I bring
Mm,
hope. And the surgeon that I'm working with now is honestly one of the most beautiful people I've ever met. Had I gone to him with, you're probably going to be shit too, I
mhm,
would have had a very different experience. But I went to him with I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful and I'm open to your goodness. And that's hard to do. It's so many of us have experienced so many shitty things in the medical world. And I always take a stance to celebrate the beauty that's also there.
mhm,
Because the team that's treating me now is just wow. And they're
mm,
out there. They're out there. Yeah.
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 What's the vision that you see for yourself if this surgery is over and you have your health back and hopefully your energy and your like everything that has been blocked because of that? How do you see your life unfolding from there?
The sentence I keep hearing myself or hearing for myself is vitality will return to this body. And I am honestly just so excited to have a cycle again. I haven't been able to have a cycle in so many
Mm.
years, and that feels like a suppression of such a deep, raw feminine wisdom. Like, God, I would love to PMS and bleed. That like turns me on. Yeah, I would love to PMS and bleed and to have an ovulation and to just be thrown around by my hormones again. I miss that. Oh my God, I miss that. I really miss that. And to just be raw feminine again. I feel a
Mhm.
bit flattened and I can feel the pulse of the rawness underneath everything. So it's not gone, but I can feel like it's a gremlin that I'm suppressing, and I'm so done with that suppression. And of course, I hope to have way more energy, and there's so much creativity in me that I can't bring right now. And that's the hardest part. The hardest part is not I'm not depressed. I literally don't have the energy to birth everything that lives in me, and that's been
Mm.
really hard. And so I'm really excited to be able to create more of to actually materialize and bring into the world more of what lives in me.
Mm. And
Hmm.
I'm sure the world can, we can all not wait to see what's being birthed through
Sweetie.
that clear channel. There's one last question I ask all of my interview guests, and I invite you to close your eyes for this. So imagine you could tell a younger version of yourself, and normally an intuitive age pops up, a younger Sophie. What
Mm-hmm.
would you tell her from what you've learned on your journey that would have helped her immense?
So I was raised by Dutch parents, and the Dutch are, as many people know, very liberal. And so I was raised with very liberal values around sexuality, and so I that's a part of me that's not suppressed. So when I went into the big wide world, a lot of people thought I was way too sexual
Mm.
and way too much of all of that. And I just thought, what's wrong with this? I mean, him and I just went to God. Who cares, right? This is beautiful. There's nothing more beautiful than this. How can you shame this? And I was very confused about how the world was receiving that part of me, and women and men, like how that was being received. And I think I started, I really limited and really started dimming that part of myself. I think if I would see 17, 18-year-old me again, it'd be like, honey, like you were a pioneer. Go set this free for
Mm.
everybody. Go be a stance for this. Go be that. Let everybody be triggered and be pissed off and talk about
Mm.
you. The truth of this will be felt.
Oh my God, I love this so much.
It's a
I
beautiful
had a
question. I
similar
really like it. Mm.
I have a similar story, and it was part of why I was dimming my magic and my light because I triggered so many women, and they projected fear and jealousy, and they even called me a slut, even though I didn't do anything. And I thought, oh my God, to be liked, I have to be less sexual and to be less
Yeah.
open and less sensual and in my body. So for many, many years, I was always in my head worrying about what they would think and trying to fit into something to be accepted because I was so afraid of being outcasted that I really was hiding my magic. And it's a huge part of who we are if this comes natural, especially. I think it's in every single woman, but if we were raised, we had the privilege to be raised free in this area. If it wasn't a taboo, if it wasn't shamed, and then we still dimmed it. It's such a gift to the world
Yeah.
now to unleash that box again and to shine it into the world. And even if it triggers, sometimes exactly these women come back to me and say, "Wow, actually, it was not nothing about you. You just shined a light on my shadow that I wasn't ready to see, but now I feel inspired, and now I want to learn from you
Mm.
how I can
Mm.
be like that too, and how to feel safe to be sensual." I think that's a big
Yeah.
thing too, to feel the safety in your body and not just think
Yeah.
you're safe, but feel it in your root and in your sacred. Ah,
Mm. Mm. So beautiful, this.
thank you so much for this juicy conversation and
Mm.
for diving soul naked, literally, with a stranger. And the last thing I would like my listeners to know is how they can connect with you. How can they join Sky Daddy? How can they be part of your world?
So, my main platform is Instagram, and I also run my own podcast. So, those are the two places you could find me. In my Instagram, you have a link to all my courses, Healing the Masculine, Deep Money, and Sky Daddy, I think will be launched end of September. So, I'm very, very excited for that one. And Healing the Masculine is an ongoing course that you can always join at any time. And it's a very rich course. So, it's nice to take your time to move through it. And yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, honey. This is great.